Am I the asshole for not helping with my stepdaughter? I, F30, have been married to my husband, Dave, M35, for 2 years, been together for 5. He has a daughter from past relationship, Eve, F7. I have always been decidedly child-free. I don't like or want to be around children. When I met Dave I didn't know he had a child. We had been dating for 4 months before I realized it. To people who asked why I didn't think to ask, we met at his house, at a party he hosted. There was no picture or anything indicating there were kids around. In fact, his entire house screamed bachelor. While sofa, white bedding, extra clean, infinity pool. I realized he had a kid only when her mom dropped her off without notice at his house when I was there. It was a shock. I told him I am child-free and need to end the relationship. But he begged me to stay. I told him in no uncertain terms I don't want to be around or raise a child. He agreed. He even got a vasectomy to prove to me he is serious. Eve lived with her mom most of the time and visited every other weekend. I took off these weekends. Basically, I still led a child-free life. All that changed 2 months ago when Eve's mom remarried. Her husband didn't want any kids previous to their marriage around. Eve's mom decided since she took care of Eve for 7 years, it was now Dave's turn too. She told him that as she gave the kid to him, their custody agreement flipped, basically. Dave do love his kid. And doesn't want her to suffer. He tried getting his mom to look after her, but his mom, having just retired, refuses to work anymore. Dave was forced into keeping Eve full-time. This meant major adjustment to me as well. I had to learn to live with a kid in the house. I just avoided her at all costs. Even though it was affecting my relationship with Dave, as in we didn't get enough time together. Last week though, Dave fell sick. He needed me to take care of Eve. I tried the first day, but it was weird, awkward and exhausting. Second day onwards I just got a babysitter, on my dime. When Dave recovered enough yesterday he was furious at me for putting his child with a babysitter and refusing to take care of her. I reminded him what our agreement was. He said it didn't matter. That I should have taken care of his kid. That he needed me to step up. He said this was just selfish of me and that I am an asshole for doing this. Am I the asshole? A lot of the comments are bashing me for having married a man with a child. I admit, I was being naive. All I can say is in the 5 years we were together, only time I saw the child before her mom's wedding was when she was dropped off. Dave kept the lives so easily separate it was easy to forget he had a child. Dave is not just a father. I loved him, married him and stayed with him cause he is an amazing partner for me. We share a lot of the same interests and life with him was heaven. It only got bad once Eve moved in. All of you who are bashing me about being cold to her, we just don't cross paths. Our home is a pretty big one. She leaves for school before I get up. I will be working late and won't be at home when she gets back. When I get back she would be in her room doing homework. I go to my room to freshen up. But the time I get downstairs to cook and eat, it will already be her bedtime. On weekends DH takes her out with him or I go out. We almost never cross paths. When I see her I do smile. I do say hi. I don't go out of my way to see her or engage with her. That is it. The day I tried, she acted like a normal 7-year-old would, I think. She had school so I had to make her breakfast, get her dressed and drop her off. Got up early for that. She chatted non-stop giving me a headache. I from home and got her in afternoon. Again fixing food, helping with homework, getting her to eat dinner and tucking her in bed. Did all of it. I fell into bed with a huge headache. I asked my friends for an emergency babysitter and got the one they recommended. Paid extra for the emergency. I was physically, mentally and emotionally exhausted by taking care of her. I had a professional take care of her the rest of the days. I still checked on her and said good night every day. I am sorry but as a person who physically and mentally can't take care of kids, this is the best I could do. When you found out that he had a child, if you truly wanted nothing to do with her, you should have left. Poor Eve. I hope an adult figure in her life will step up and give this young girl the support she deserves. You are the asshole. You go out with someone with kids? You accept that you will have a part in their life. You should never have stayed if kids was a deal breaker. That poor kid. Everyone sucks here but you are the biggest asshole by a country mile. I'd say your behavior was borderline sociopathic. What has this 7-year-old done to deserve such disdain from you? God, this poor little girl. Both of her parents suck. Am I the asshole for going to work today, meaning my wife had to move house on her own? My wife and I, both 38, moved house after 9 years of living in the same place. It's been emotional as it was where she gave birth to our children, 8 and 3, and we've made memories there as a family. But honestly, I am glad we are moving. We're only moving 45 minutes away, but it's much better for us. I own a small company with 6 employees and we're short-staffed as it is. My wife and I had a moving date set and there was nothing I could do to change it, meaning I had to take a day off work to help my wife with the move. I booked this day off in advance, as soon as I knew, and put in plans for my staff to keep business going as usual. Unfortunately, yesterday, the day of our move, one of my staff called in sick and said they will be taking 2 days off until they feel better. I couldn't really do much as I was currently loading up the contents of my home into 2 moving vans. It was not ideal, but I informed my other staff who understood. My wife and I were meant to get the keys between lunchtime and 2 p.m. There was a significant delay, meaning we didn't receive them until 6 p.m. For 4 hours straight, my wife and I were stressed as we thought there was an issue with our new house and we wouldn't be able to move, despite the fact we had just sold our home to another party. My wife was getting more stressed as time went on. We still had to feed and settle our kids and we didn't even have beds or mattresses for them to sleep on yet. At one point, she was almost in tears. I was stressed too, but tried to reassure her everything would work out. We finally got the keys, but we were exhausted. After a long day, we got the essentials out of the moving van, such as beds for our kids, some clothes, and I ran to the shop to get something for dinner. I tried to settle them as quickly as possible, but as you can imagine, our 3-year-old was tired and cranky. We left everything else in the moving vans for the evening and agreed to just do it all the next day. This morning, I got dressed for work. My wife stopped me immediately. She told me I am selfish for going to work today as the vans have to be returned by a certain time and there's no way she could move everything in just a few hours. I told her I had to go to work today as a manager who is already down on staff. One of my other workers had a midwife appointment that she had scheduled in weeks ago and couldn't miss, meaning we would be even lower on numbers, and after checking in yesterday, they struggled quite a bit with the workload, meaning I needed to be back as soon as possible. My wife said I am an asshole expecting her to move all of our belongings and look after our 2 children and that I would have to take the morning off at least. Unfortunately, my worker's midwife appointment was scheduled for the morning. I went to work anyway. I told my wife I will be home around lunchtime to help, but she texted me saying she will have finished it all by this point, so don't bother. Am I the asshole? You are the asshole. If I were your wife, I would have taken the kids out for the day and let you deal with getting everything out of the van all by yourself. Is this a money thing? Are you too cheap to hire movers? You are the asshole. Your wife was in tears yesterday and you still left this all to her? You are the asshole because you failed to manage adequately at work, you failed to manage adequately at home, and then you made your wife pay the price. Info: how would your wife be able to move all your furniture by herself? Your story makes no sense. You are the asshole. You should not have left her to handle all of this by herself with young children. The least you could have done is hire some people to help her if you needed to be gone. Am I the asshole for calling the hotel? I had to create an anonymous username because people know my regular username. I will try to keep this short and sweet. I have a mill that has been a thorn in my side for over 20 years. From the second I started dating her son, she was an actual pain and boundary stomped nonstop. An example: my first child was an emergency C-section and I was released a day earlier than normal, and she thought it was acceptable to call my OB/GYN to have him make me stay at the hospital longer. She also made sure to tell me on multiple occasions that I will never have a strong bond because I couldn't breastfeed. When my husband and I confronted her, she lied and played the victim. I recently started going to therapy and have really begun to understand that she is absolutely insane. I always knew, but I never wanted to put my husband in a weird position. He is, by all means, a great husband. Very supportive and caring. Here's the issue: we have a family wedding this weekend out of town for my husband's side. My children are in the wedding and we are very excited. My husband informed me that his mother called the hotel to request that we have an adjoining room with his parents. She did not discuss it with us, she just made the call to the hotel. To say that I am feeling violated is a gross understatement. I told him that I am not okay with this. He said he didn't want to create any problems or drama and didn't want anyone to be upset. He also said it's probably because she wants to spend time with our children, but I feel as if this type of thing should be discussed first. We did say we are fine with being on the same floor for this reason. but she took it upon herself to call and request that our rooms be adjoining. I took matters into my own hands and called the hotel myself to request that we do not have adjoining rooms. My husband is worried this will create a bigger issue, but I am really upset that his mom thinks this is acceptable. We are near 40 and I don't want to be treated like a child. I am at a loss here. Am I the asshole? Edit. I've seen a question about how he has stood up for me. With the breastfeeding comments, him and I sat down with her and my Phil and my husband stood up for me by saying it's unacceptable for her to say these things, and he was very firm. She then said I was lying, but then even my husband heard her and called her out. There was a stretch of about a year and a half where I received anonymous text messages that were pretty horrible. As in calling my children ugly, saying they were not lucky to have me as a parent, and even saying my pregnancy loss was because that baby didn't want me as their mother. Just horrible things. It could only be a handful of people based on what this person knew. My husband and I suspected it was his brother's wife. When my husband mentioned it to his mom, she said Sil would never and that I probably sent them to myself because that's how I am. He put an end to that quickly. Not the asshole. I worked front desk at a hotel, and when this type of thing happened we would take the blame, just tell the other person there were no adjoining rooms available, and put them on different floors. Not the asshole. After all, you didn't do anything she didn't do first. Ask your husband why he's okay with you being upset. As for the drama, it doesn't have to be, if you and him are on the same page and don't go along with Mil's attempts to start anything. Don't confront her. Act as you would when one of you little ones is throwing a tantrum. She'll get over it. In what way is your husband very supportive and caring when you expressed a specific concern and his response was effectively, no? Not the asshole, and your husband needs to tell his mom to fuck off. Not the asshole. But you need to have a talk with your husband about not being intimidated into acquiescing to his mom's boundary stomping. Am I the asshole for ruining new husband's relationship with his family? 2 months ago, I, 32 female, married the man of my dreams, 35 male, in a backyard wedding at my parents'. A second wedding for both with only closest family and friends. The night was perfect except one major issue. My husband's older brother, 42 male, let's call him Tim, grabbed my ass as he hugged me during the reception. It's not the first time he's made advances, and I've always told my husband when it happened. E.g. commenting on body and swimwear, shoulder rubs, telling my husband to take me home and really look after me, and I have the ideal body shape. In the past, I've moved away, put clothing over swimwear, made up excuses. Before the wedding, I sat down another brother's wife and asked how she dealt with Tim. She said she just had to swat hands away and say, "Don't be gross, I'm your sister." Fast forward to wedding, I decided to ignore it and deal with it later. That was until I had my married Mo, little sis and guest approach me asking who he was and that he was being super creepy. They also said that his leering looks made them very uncomfortable, and their partners noticed and stepped in front to be out of line of sight. I went up to him and asked to speak privately. I said if he couldn't act appropriately and hold his drink, he'd have to leave. He denied everything, so went to hubby to tell him what had happened. He left soon after, and I put it at the back of my mind to enjoy my night. The next morning, both me and hubby felt very flat over what had occurred. Hubby was furious and really disappointed at Tim and sent a message in the family chat, "Thank you all for coming and helping out, but our night was overshadowed by Tim grabbing my ass and making guests feel uncomfortable. It's happened too many times and he's fed up with Tim's behavior being swept under the rug, ignored, and the excuses for him. He wanted the whole family to hold him accountable. The next thing, his mum's calling saying I'm a liar and spreading rumors that Tim's an absolute gentleman and would never do anything like that. Tim totally denied everything. After the honeymoon, not one family member replied to any photos, messages or request to help us move house. 4 weeks later, hubby went to meet them to discuss. Tim didn't show as they said nothing would be resolved if he'd come, so they'd come as his advocates. They blatantly rejected that it happened and are backing Tim 100%. They also said that I need to be less precious and that even if he did do it, it's not that bad at all. Nothing was resolved, and they also said it wasn't his fault as he's borderline alcoholic and isn't ready to quit drinking. We haven't seen or spoken to any family since, and I've left the family chat. I feel awful that I've only known hubby for 1 year, and in that time, he splintered his relationship with his parents and siblings over this. I just kind of feel dirty over the whole situation and so sad for what hubby has lost but grateful that he stood by my side completely. Am I the asshole for saying anything? A narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't that bad. And if it was, that's not a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it. Not the asshole. Being sexually harassed is not ruining your husband's relationship with his family. Good for him on siding with you and his morals over anything else. Not the asshole at all. And your husband is a good man. Darvo. Wow. That was most of the narcissist's prayer at the end there.